Welcome to I Spit on Your Podcast, the only podcast.
What are you doing?
I'm moving a light over here. I realize how bad I look. It's gonna be very quick and easy. Don't worry. Ow! Best laid plans, dude. You know what I'm saying? Son of a bitch. Am I an attractive boy now?
Not with that shit on your head still, but
No, they're gonna win 150 games next year.
yeah, good luck. Maybe by the time Mackenzie's in college, they'll actually make the postseason.
That's only 18 years.
Yeah. I tried watching I was like, oh shit, I didn't realize the Orioles were playing right now. I honestly looked at the score and it was 6-2, and I was like, oh, that's fine, they can come back. Then it was 9-2, then it was 13-2, then it was 6, and I was just like, what the fuck? And I was just like, it's gonna be that type of night.
It always is. But you know what? At least you know I'm not a bandwagoner. Kevin, what are you doing? Why do I have to have a bad cat? Why was I cursed with a bad cat? All my friends have good cats.
Justin's asking why he was cursed with 2 shitty co-hosts today.
No, not what I'm asking.
He's rubbing his beard, just plotting who he's gonna replace us with. Diana?
Diana Ross?
Sorry if you've jerked off with sandpaper, Tyler.
The reverse side.
That said too, Justin, I want to kind of shout out your mom.
Welcome to another episode of I Spit on Your Podcast, the only horror podcast that was granted 3 wishes by a horror genie. This week, we bring to you Wishmaster from 1997, directed by Robert Kurtzman.
Wait, hang on, Justin. What 3 wishes were we granted?
Anything, whatever wishes you'd like.
Well, no, you just said we were granted them, not that we were given 3 wishes. You said 3 wishes were granted. Did you blow all 3 of our wishes without us?
I guess that's for me to know and you to find out. So we jump right in with the opening credits showing the forging of this fire opal. Obviously showing something of important value. It starts again with a title card reading, which generally I'm not a big fan of, but I think this one kind of did an okay job.
Would the movie be worse without it, though?
It tried to do something and it had the right idea, but it didn't do a very good job at it. It was the good idea to explain it, but I think what it fails to do is explain enough of the djinn and kind of what's going on. I think what would have been a slightly better way of doing this, I'd prefer in this instance to think that if while that gemstone scene is playing, while it's being forged, that narration of the djinn plays over that as well, as opposed to some song or whatever, and then the title card.
So the intro sequence from Lord of the Rings.
Basically, yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool when I was reminded that this was Wes Craven. I would have never guessed it. I fucking love Wes Craven. And I genuinely did not know that. That name came up, and that was honestly just such a pleasant surprise. I was like, holy shit, I'm about to watch a Wes Craven movie.
I never realized this came out after the first Scream. It's like, wow. I would not have thought that.
Well, because Scream is so trendy, sexy 2000s, and this is so schlocky, gory, practical effect 80s.
Exactly. It seems like it's so you think it would be decades apart, but in actuality it's only a year.
I think that the guy that plays the djinn, perfect casting. I don't think it could have been better. It fit so perfectly.
It is the best casting in the history of movies.
This movie relies so heavily on the performance that he acts that if he's not casting it somebody else, it may not be as iconic as it turned out to be.
No one would remember it. No one would have seen it. It would have been both awful and no one would remember it without him.
The other thing that shoulders this movie is the use of the practical effects. Like, there are some insanely good practical effects. mostly in the first opening scene in Egypt, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the final scene at the party is just like a smorgasbord of practical effects being used. In that first Egyptian scene, there's a girl whose head basically turns into tree bark with branches like rooting off the top, and it just flashes so quick, but it looks so well done. And on the contrary, the non-practical, the CGI effects are just so bad.
Incredibly bad. For
Right.
1996.
7.
97. It's part of what makes you think this is an 80s movie.
The practical effects are so good that when you see these stupid CGI effects, like coming to mind is when he breaks the glass, he puts the security guard, when he puts Jason Voorhees in the glass and shatters him, as well as that weird when they're in Egypt too, and like the room is just kind of like wobbling. It's just so bad.
That dumb fucking sound when the glass breaks, that it makes.
And the very shitty like 3D effect of the glass coming at you too.
Yeah, so fucking pointless.
When the djinn was whispering into the pharaoh's ear, kind of trying to coax him to wish for one more thing, suggesting that he could wish to undo this massacre, that means that there was a first wish that obviously couldn't have gone that bad if the pharaoh's second wish was, what does he say? He goes, mesmerize me, show me something I've never seen before. Like, if you understand that this guy's whole shtick is turning your words around and making your wish bad, can you think of a worse thing to wish for than mesmerize me or amaze me, show me something I've never seen before? So whatever he wished for first must have not given that away.
Well, remember real quick too, remember when he's talking to the boss, that girl's boss after he kills Jason, and he says, I want $1 million. And the guy's mom gets on a plane, writes that he's her beneficiary, because apparently they filled that out in the 90s when they boarded planes, and she died. So nothing happened to him, and he might
His
not
mom died. That's something happening to him.
But let me finish. He may not have connected those dots. He may not have been like, oh, I asked for $1 million and then my mom died in a plane accident. Like, I think it's kind of hard to believe that you wish for something and then something happens. You're like, oh, it's directly related to that. Because I can understand a first wish, something happening, but maybe there's a little bit more of a pro than a con to it. But then at the same time, with this main girl, every time something's happening, she feels it and has visions. So did the Pharaoh not also feel that pain and have those visions too? So I kind of go back and forth on that.
Thinking back on it, his first wish may have been to put himself in power like that. Because if you think about it, he doesn't really look like the type of guy that would be in sort of position like that. He's not really draped in all these fancy linens and gold and all this stuff. He just kind of looks like a regular guy sitting on this throne.
He looks like a New York City cab driver.
Right. Because I remember watching it and saying, who the hell is this guy? Like, he does not look like someone who should be ruling over a group of people.
Don't question Wes Craven. How about that?
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes he needs to be kept in check.
There's so much 90s cheese in this movie too that's just so boring. Like montage of playing tennis and these little like stupid little interactions between people that it's just like ugh. Like I don't feel like I'm watching a horror movie anymore. That's just like we could do with a lot less of this or cut it down a bit. It just doesn't do much for the plot.
Well, all pre-Scream 90s horror movies have that.
Right. For the time, it makes sense, but it's just like, looking back on it now, it's like, ugh.
I actually really enjoyed the icons that cameoed in this movie and the different parts that they played and all that stuff. I thought that was really humorous and enjoyable.
Yeah, there's definitely some nice horror icons for sure in this. Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Tony Todd. Like you said, Ted Raimi. Yeah.
I love the Tom Savini one. That's just so, he's like dressed up like he would be dressed up on the set, and they were just like, "Hey Tom, do you want to be in the scene real quick?" And he was like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?"
As far as cameos, the narrator that does that intro that you don't like, where he's reading the text.
Yeah.
The person reading that is the tall man.
Yep. So they come into possession of the fire opal from it breaking apart a statue. Kind of odd to me that these people would hide it in a statue but not put any sort of warning with it. But you would think there would be some sort of, like, I'm pretty sure even like the Necronomicon says, like, don't read aloud or whatever in certain points of it.
Like in the Bye Bye Man, where she finds the desk and it says, don't think it, don't say it, 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 the Bye Bye Man.
Yeah, exactly. Another stupid, like, dumb moment of, like, why would you do that? But continuing down that line, Alex now is possessing the fire opal after her boss has it sold to him or delivered to him from a pawn shop owner, and she sees this blemish that just kind of appears out of nowhere. It's kind of weird why it would pick and choose when to kind of show itself. You would think as soon as somebody had it, it would be like, hey, look at me, there's this weird blemish. Mm-hmm. But as soon as she looks at it, it's like, okay, I'm going to show myself, and then, like, get into her brain. She hands it off to her buddy Jason to analyze, and
poor guy.
He puts it in this machine, and, you know, shit just hits the fan. He goes crazy. I will say, I thought it was pretty cool that when the Jinn does come out, that he's not, like, full form. He has to, like, regain his power, and there's this, like, toddler version of him.
I thought that was silly.
I know that it's not done in the exact same way, but to me, it was a little bit of a ripoff of Hellraiser.
It feels like it fits better than this guy just appearing out of this gem.
If you're going to come out and you're physically going to be weaker, then I would like to see your power be weak as well. But you're just as powerful as you were before. Like, that's not fair. I would have liked to see him struggle a little bit with the amount of power that he had with the wishes and how he, enforced them. Not have one person make a wish, you full force use it, and then you're back to full health.
He did kind of struggle, didn't he? Because in every other wish he fulfills in the movie, he doesn't move a muscle, he doesn't blink an eye. But in this, when he's breaking the guy's bones, he's like doing this on the ground.
The one thought to attach to that is maybe the idea of being trapped in this fire opal. His body regresses, but his brain basically stays the same. Like his body vegetates and becomes really weak and crippled, but in that same time, your mind is still going strong.
When Alex says, one of her real wishes is, oh, I wish I knew what you were made of, and he collects her and puts her in the stone, and you see a few of the souls that we've seen him capture and torture in the movie, it seems like those souls make him strong. That's what gives him his power. Then when he's trapped in the stone, wouldn't he be trapped with all those souls that he still had collected throughout history? Because none of that was taken away from him or erased. So wouldn't he still be just as strong as he was?
I'm assuming that the Egypt was the first appearance of him. Mm-hmm. And then, or maybe not first, but the last up until Alex released him. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that maybe that fire opal didn't exist prior to that Egyptian point, which would then possibly explain why the souls he collected pre-gemstone weren't in there.
It's not you, but it just doesn't make sense to me that he could be so strong in Egypt, but what's the source of your power? Where are you holding it? Every genie has the lamp. This Jinn, he is given that opal, and it's, I'm not trying to do it yet, but it just kind of seems a little half-assed to me.
One other thing I wanted to say before we jump into that too is she just runs right into the crime scene after Jason dies. What the fuck? Come on.
Yeah.
There was no yellow tape. There was nothing, At least show her ducking under some tape or something.
And then the detective, when she runs away, is like, no, it's fine, let her go.
Right.
They weren't all wearing gloves either, but it's okay. Wes can make a mistake. That's fine.
So yeah, so kind of like I hinted at, is now she's created this weird connection with the Jinn, not really explained. Maybe because she rubbed the gem 3 times. Really kind of, I don't like the way they did it of her having these like migraine moments of him being connected with her. Like it just feels really dumb and like, I guess to use Sean's word, lazy. But I will say for Tyler, you kind of flying back to Veronica when you talked about the yawn and the mouth scream.
Yeah.
There's an equally as good match cut in this one. The Jinn grabs the cigarette from, I believe it's the homeless guy, and he like looks at it, and he's like going to like smell it, and then it immediately match cuts to Alex smoking the cigarette. So you get a visual connection between the two of them as well. So I figured that was worth mentioning because it was actually a really good technical moment. I literally dislike the Alex character throughout this entire movie until the very end. But we'll get there. She's just, I just don't like this weird, stupid connection that, like, the way, just the way it's portrayed. And I guess it's not necessarily her fault. It could be the way it's written, but there's just no good explanation.
Can we just say for a moment too that these fucking people aren't saying I wish for or I wish this. They're saying I'd like or I'd see or I'd want. He has to have 3 wishes from the person that freed him, but if somebody's sitting there going, damn, I really wish I had a burger right now, he'd be like, I gotcha. How is that a fucking wish? It's Wishmaster, not Sugar Daddy. All right, come on. Like, give me some fucking rules to abide by. Wes kind of just phoned this one in. He was working on Scream 2 and planning 3, and this guy was like, hey, let's make a Wishmaster movie. And he was like, yeah, sure, green light, here you go.
He's granting all these wishes. He's trying to hunt down Alex, and you're like, what the fuck is he doing any of this for? And then there's like a line where I think when she's talking to Robert Englund's character, he's like, oh yeah, he releases once he grants the 3 wishes for that who released him, then he can open this hole, and he needs to grant all these other wishes to gain strength. Like, why the fuck would you not mention that before? The more lore of the Jinn is explained way too late and out of order.
I don't know. To me, I get the vibe this was a movie that he did care about. I just think that he didn't think that the logic was that important.
So it seems like they had a lot of good moments, but then they're like, okay, how are we going to tie this whole thing together and make it a full movie? Another thing that kind of was annoying was all the really cheap, shitty jump scares. I think this movie isn't the type of movie for jump scares.
There's a scene in particular when she's at the computer, and Jason is his name, I want to say. The guy that wants to bang her.
Yep. He,
like, gently puts his hand on her shoulder to get her attention, and you get the fucking full orchestra. The jump scares were just an absolute joke. Like, I wrote that down in my notes too. Like, it was some of the worst jump scare abuse I've seen outside of a James Wan movie.
I actually rolled my eyes and got up and just shook my head at the one where she's talking to wannabe Lin Shaye, and that girl with the mask all of a sudden just jumps into there, like, right into her personal space. And she's like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to scare you. Bitch, you're like an inch away from my face. What the fuck do you mean you're sorry you didn't mean to scare me? Give me some goddamn personal space, you fucking creep. This girl, this final girl, this actress, it was probably written in, I don't know. But she was some garbage, dude. Like, she was one of the worst fucking things I've ever seen in a movie.
Kind of fine, though.
She was like a knockoff of Big Lots Amy Smart. And like when she's talking to the Jinn and he's like, you have 3 wishes. And she's like, blow your brains out. Like, why wouldn't you be like, kill yourself, like destroy yourself? I know, tell me how to do it. But no, she kind of half-asses it. And she goes, well, I tell my girls all the time to learn their opponent. So that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, you could tell when Wes was writing that line, he thought it was so bad.
Right? And she's like, show me what you're made of. Bitch, if you don't get out, like, I thought he would have laughed at her. I laughed at her. I thought she was a joke in that scene. I thought she was a joke in the majority of this movie.
One other thing that's worth noting is like for every good thing, there's like an equal opposite bad. Like we've hinted at already. Like there's the really good practical effects and then the really shitty CGI effects. There's really good acting from Divoff playing the Jinn, and then there's really shitty Alex to counter it.
She is a bad actress.
It's so bad that like they give you good things and then you have this counter that it's just like, well, fuck. Oh, the statues coming to life is probably one of my favorite scenes, just because it's really fucking cool. And it's like, it's that one. If you remember from last week, I said, I watched this movie as a kid a few times.
Yeah.
That's the scene that I always remember. I just love that scene. It just becomes like his army, because then you've got them standing behind him as like his guards. It's just cool. Like the beginning sequence and the ending sequence, in my opinion, are the two strongest parts of this whole movie.
Well, that's because I feel like in theory, that's what the Jinn is best at, is just causing chaos.
Because I think one of my favorite thing is to point out like really funny lines, and I love when I think it's when he's talking, the Jinn's talking to Alex in her apartment or somewhere. He's just like, well, I guess it seems shit has hit the fan.
Yes.
It's like something sounding so unnatural coming from him, but is just so humorous.
Speaking of funny lines, that bum is just a constant stream of one-liners. Everything he says is hilarious.
So the last point that I have to make around the story is, I think the best Alex part is how she just suddenly becomes smart enough to totally outsmart the Jinn by resetting things to everything before he was there. When she does reset it, she should have lost all of her memory of what happened. So she shouldn't have then warmed up to the idea of dating Jason. She should have been in the exact same mindset that she was before.
The reason that I'm willing to put up with it is because Jason actually getting his chance at the end of this movie, after one, being shut down, and two, dead, is kind of the last thing that you expect. And so I thought it was kind of an unexpectedly sort of sweet thing to get. My issue is the Jinn was able to turn so many other innocuous wishes around, and he couldn't think of any way to turn that around. Because if you'll recall, I believe her exact wording was something along the lines of, I wish that operator wasn't drinking or whatever. Wasn't drinking on the job or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so he was doing heroin instead. It was one of the easiest wishes to fuck around with, and he couldn't think of anything?
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually. I didn't really think about that.
One of the things that I thought would be just a fun thing to talk about is, what would you wish for? Like, you're trying to either, one, destroy the Jinn, or two, benefit personally in some way while limiting damage. I want one from each of you. Nothing isn't an option.
I would wish that he lost all his power and became mortal.
Not bad.
I would maybe wish to have the same exact power that he has to be able to counteract him.
Okay. Those aren't bad. Mine's less creative than you guys. I kind of took more of the It Follows approach. I would wish for him to be in some undiscovered tomb underground, alone, for 1,000,000 years. And I would also throw in to the wording, I would also say inactive. Like, not carrying on down there, just waiting like a prisoner in a cell for 1,000,000 years.
That's not bad.
Me and Justin are ready to fight him, and you're just like, nah, get out of my face.
Another one I would think that it wouldn't get rid of the Jinn altogether, but if you were to foil your third wish, maybe just like make yourself a mute. That way you can't make a third wish.
What was your favorite death? So mine is kind of a tie. One because it's scarier, one because it's creepier. I think the scariest one was Tony Todd's death.
Getting trapped.
Yeah, getting trapped in like that water Houdini puzzle.
Yeah.
That gives me the absolute willies. And then I think the creepiest was the girl turning into a mannequin, specifically because of the scene later, which I think is probably the creepiest or scariest or most effective or whatever you want to call it, shot in the entire movie. The mannequin's eyes rolling back in his head.
I'd have to say probably my favorite death, even though it was done so poorly, is when he puts Kane Hodder in the door. You'd have to get through me, and he like stops on the dime and has this smirk and just like puts him into the door and then walks through him. Well, it just was done so badly.
I didn't really find any of the deaths specifically to be amazing. The carrot top looking dude who went blind when the djinn was cutting the guy's face off and putting it on his face, and he was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Blah blah. He's like, "Do you wish to not see this?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." And then he like puts skin over his eyes so that he can't open them. And then like, the 90 cheese acting, he's like, "Oh, my eyes, I can't see." I thought that was just funnily done. Like, "Oh, you don't want to see this?" "No, I don't." "Now you can't."
Here's something that could potentially be a hot take. This is a movie that I would not mind see being remade. What you really have at its core is an enticing concept that just came out when the technology wasn't there to fully deliver the full potential.
So that's our review on Wishmaster. Now for our final thoughts and opinions, starting with Sean.
So this movie is like a really good bad movie. I feel like the concept of this movie is amazing. I think it's really cool. What would an evil genie do? Like, what kind of destruction could they cause? I always find those situations or scenarios to be very interesting. With so much power, how much havoc can you cause? This movie also benefits so much from the cameos that are in there, especially if you're a horror lover. You just want to see these faces, and it's awesome. The practical effects in this movie are very top 10-ish. They are absolutely incredible. They're very well done. The problem is with all of those positives come all of the negatives in the movie of the CGI, the poor writing, the terrible lead. It's almost disappointing how much potential was actually wasted in this movie. And I was really on the side of the djinn more because the actor was just perfectly done. I don't think there could have been a better actor to do it. His delivery was incredible. His presence was it was awesome. He was slightly humorous in spots that he wanted to be, and he was very demonic at times, and it was a great experience to watch him. They gave you details and they really built up a story, and then they half-assed and phoned in so much more of it, and it's disappointing to me. I just feel like our main character could have gotten rid of him a million different ways, and just 5 minutes ago we came up with 4 ideas off the top of our heads. She had chances to figure it out and say it correctly and word it how she'd want to, and instead she kind of just ran, which I understand. You run because you're fearful, but you have to understand that you're kind of given a gift with him chasing you down, telling you to, get these wishes. He will grant them. Yeah, there'll be a twist on them, but there's just so many ways to defeat him. The way the movie ended was bullshit to me. I was really annoyed at the 2 separate party scenes because you're basically, it seems like the movie just repeated itself from the text in the beginning to the professor telling her about the djinn. So with all of that said, I'm going to have to give this movie a 2 out of 10. The scary rating, I'm going to give it, if I have to, a 1 out of 10.
Wishmaster is a perfect example of a good bad movie, exactly like Sean said. The 2 biggest problems with this movie
are the wasted potential and the stupid characters. The Jinn, as we proved earlier, isn't terrifically difficult to defeat or at least neutralize. And none of the characters capitalized on that. And considering the time period this movie came out, which was 1997, with a mid to low budget, or I would assume, it just didn't have a chance to live up to the potential of what this idea had to create. There are a few things going for it, which obviously include one of the most cameo-packed horror movies you can pretty much get. The first Hatchet is up there, but this might even beat that. It's great to see all those guys that we as a community love so much. And of course, the thing that we all agree on, and we're all probably going to say, is that Andrew Divoff, if we're pronouncing that correctly, may be the best casting decision in the history of horror movies. Just literally perfect. With that being said, overall, yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it a 4. I mean, it is not a great movie. But to me, that's okay because it succeeds in being fun, and that seems to have been its primary directive anyway. Scary rating, I'm going to give a 3 because just the idea of some of the things that happen to people is pretty terrible. I would almost venture to say that it's not even intended to be that scary. It's more meant to be fun even than scary. But yeah, with that being said, those would be my ratings, 4 and 3.
So I think you guys pretty much have really hit it on the head with describing exactly how I feel as well. It's definitely not a great movie by any means necessary, but it makes up with being a super fun movie. It has really great practical effects, which is something that always stands out to me. But at the same time, the CGI effects are so bad that you can't have one with the other. And that goes with the acting, with Andrew Divoff being so perfect as the Jinn, but then having to counter with the actress who plays Alex doing such a poor job. Again, the plot really doesn't stand up well. There's a lot of holes and questions that make zero sense, but I don't think the real main goal was to have something that was super linear and Oscar worthy, like Tyler said. And without Divoff and the practical effects, I think this movie would just been really, really bad, and you probably wouldn't have got 2, 3, and 4. With that being said, I kind of wavered a little with my overall rating. I did end up giving it a 5, but scary, I also gave it a 1. There's not really anything that really frightened me or made me squirm or anything. It was just a really fun ride to be on. I'm going to pass it over to Sean, who is going to tease what next week's episode will be all about.
It's not fair to just do movies that we like and that we appreciate and love. So I'm going to bite the bullet and do something that I can't fucking stand and a person that I hate because I think he's a douchebag. You want to see a dead body? We're going to a House of a Thousand Corpses.
Sweet. Yes.
Okay, all right. I actually haven't seen it.
Justin, take us home.
Thank you for watching episode 5 on the Wishmaster. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, share with your friends, family, pets, aliens from other nations, and everything. That means the most to us is just building a fan base right now. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Jump right out of the screen and barely move me. We hard hitting, directing and starring in it. Y'all want drama? Wanna make a scary movie? Rappers coming in with their team and carry toolies. You can jump right out of the screen and barely move me. We hard